Hello, friends, and welcome to the Optimized Advisor Podcast, where we focus on optimizing the well-being and best practices of insurance and financial professionals today. On this show, our objective is to help you optimize your life, optimize your profession, and learn from other optimized advisors. I'm your host, Scott Heinela. We hope you enjoy the show. Hello, ladies. Thank you, and welcome to the Optimized Advisor Podcast. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for having us. We're so excited.
I am too, but I'm here solely today to just be a sponge and learn and gain some insights from two fabulous people. And I'm not one of them. No.
Oh, stop.
You are fabulous.
We were talking about beforehand. That's how women compliment each other. You look just so beautiful.
You do.
Oh my gosh. This is amazing. This is
we did compliment the background of your office because that was like, that looks nice.
You did.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So
and
Beth Moss.
Yes.
My associate and friend, regional director with Producers Choice Network, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for coming on here today. Could you talk just a little bit, do the proper introduction here?
Well, thank you. I'm so excited to be here today. And I'm absolutely loving everything that you're doing with your podcast and giving back to the advisor community. So yes, as you mentioned, we are counterparts, and I'm a regional director for Producers Choice. This has been my passion for, oh my goodness, 20 plus years. And I've been with Producers Choice now for about 13, almost 14 years. Every day I get to wake up and I get to do something that I absolutely love, which is giving back to the advisors that we serve in our community. Like, I really feel that we all have a purpose when it comes to leading our lives with our passion and what it is that we do on an everyday basis. And I am a helper. Every day that I wake up and I have this ambition to be able to help others, but not just in any fashion. Like, my real passion is helping others connect with their clients. I think a lot of times in financial planning, there's this whole stigma that comes along with it of, oh, what do you do? Well, I work in financial services. And immediately people think that you're wanting to sell them something. But that's not the reality. The reality is that what the financial professionals do that we serve is they help their clients prepare for the unexpected. And that just happened to be my calling. It wasn't something that I anticipated, or actually I thought that I would have a completely different career path than what I have now. However, when you experience life events that really draw attention to how vital insurance planning is and how people need to be prepared at every stage of life, it's not that you just wake up one day and say, oh, I think I'm going to quit my job and retire tomorrow. This is a path that individuals have to follow. And I look at the financial services profession as, you're the leader. You're like their navigator to help individuals navigate risk as we age, when we're looking to retire, to leave a legacy, and to actually plan for the unexpected. Anything can happen at any moment in time. And that's where I really love to embrace what it is that financial advisors do. I love to help them grow and connect with their clients and incorporate insurance-based planning with annuities and life insurance and long-term care. I think a lot of times we don't bring a lot of light to how valuable that is. And so I'm so incredibly fortunate to be part of such a great team with Producers Choice, but also to be able to help the financial professionals that we serve and their advisors and their staff and their clients. And all of this led to me really truly having a passion to uplift other women in financial services, and not just female advisors or female insurance agents, but also their female client base. I think a lot of times we have a male-dominated industry, and it's hard to make that connection when it comes to working with their female clients. And so there's a disconnect. However, women are so influential, and they seriously, right now, they hold a majority of wealth in our country. And so this part of the planning space really needs to be paid attention to, because they're desperate for education and for knowing what it is they need to do. But there's also some confidence that goes along with that. And I think that that's something that we get to shine a light on, is how can you actually bridge that gap and build up your clients, but also build up the women who are coming into our industry.
That was very well said. A couple things I'll say to that. I say the same thing, that since I found this space of insurance planning, I tell people I've never felt like I worked a day in my life, job, if you will. And that doesn't mean that every day is, peaches and cream and all fun and super easy and all of that. Every day brings challenges. But in my previous life, when I was working myself through college, I was involved in construction, and God bless anybody who can survive a career in construction from being on the field, because it is so labor intensive and just demanding. And I quickly realized, wow, I commend anybody who can do this day in and day out and last a 30, 40-year career. But that was tough. It was a tough way to make a living. So in our space, to be able to provide value to an area, I think that's just, I would also make the argument, agree or disagree, that I think very few people, if any, kind of grow up in their working lives to say, I want to be an insurance agent. I want to be an insurance professional. Rah, I'm so excited to do this. However, with that said, once you get into it, it is such an exciting, challenging, rewarding space to be. Change is constant. The intricacies that we deal with, the product diversity, the carrier challenges, the financial aspect of being an insurance company and representing insurance companies is nothing mundane.
No.
The landscape is forever changing underneath us. The challenges that we face, just from a product standpoint, from the nuance standpoint, the infrastructure standpoint, from regulation. I mean, there's so many aspects and facets to what we do. Providing that value to advisors is just a wonderful, wonderful opportunity, and a challenging opportunity that we all face.
Yes.
Agree.
All right. So Sheryl Hickerson, for the reason for today's conversation is really females in finance, and focusing on that topic in particular, not just the organization, but approaching this whole world of women in finance and dealing with financial planning. My father passed away when I was a very young boy. I never really had a father figure in my life. My mother was the only parent that I really had, and she was a private school teacher for about 30 years. So she never made $1 over $40,000 in her working career. And the only retirement she had was the equity in our home. And I can remember specifically times where, our mortgage payment was about $865 a month. And because my dad passed away at a young age, she received her salary plus 2 Social Security benefits until my sister and I turned 18. That was her sole income.
Yeah.
But it was very, very hard in many months for her to make the mortgage payment. That having them empowered from a she did not. She was just a very artistic, emotional person and wonderful being, but financial savvy, she was not.
Yeah.
So I grew up in that paradigm, if you will. I think there's some perspective to be had there. And I think part of it is that is what's driven me to be where I am today, and the industry and the space that we're in. So welcome, Sheryl, the founder of Females in Finance.
Thank you.
If you can please talk to us and enlighten us a little bit about what the heck that is and what it is that you all do. And then let's unpack a bunch of different aspects of this.
Yeah. And I really appreciate you sharing a personal story too, because my mother, I was 6 when my mom died. She was 39, and they didn't sell life insurance to women in 1970. They didn't have a lot of value in their opinion back then. Would have been really helpful because we, like you, my father collected that Social Security check, and she was so young. I mean, it wasn't much, but it really did kind of help. And a lot of it was to pay that. It's really interesting when you look back with women on money topics, and it's not because there's a lack of savviness to it. It's a lack of ability to have people who sit down and with us and say, hey, let's teach you that. Or I oftentimes remember too, being younger and be like, numbers came up and like, that's for the guys. And I want to know, so I think that's part of what sort of drove me to do what I do today, as Females in Finance was sort of birthed out of this idea of, I was speaking at a lot of conferences. How I met Beth was at a conference.
Yeah.
And there's a whole story there. And trust me. And it has to do with women. Another trust me. But, it was one of those things where I'm speaking at 25 to 40 conferences a year, non-COVID year, and going out, standing on stage, getting ready to speak. And I'd look out and there'd be like 4 women. You're lucky if there's anybody of color. That doesn't happen. And so I started getting really nosy, and I'd go up to event coordinators like, how did you qualify to be here? Like, because I'm thinking there's got to be a qualification. She's like, well, it's sometimes it's by people who get asked. You had to qualify $5. And then of course the event coordinators oftentimes just admitted whoever they tell us to invite, we do. I'm like, gotcha. Right. Okay. We got a problem here. And so I left, and I spent 2017 into 2018. I interviewed almost 400 women and asking them, how did you get here? Because to your point, nobody got up in the morning and said, whoo, I'm going to go sell some insurance. Yeah. No, nobody did.
Maybe there's one person who ever did, but I don't know. I haven't found that person yet.
No, I haven't met them.
Yeah. Maybe a legacy, like their parents were involved in insurance. That would be the only thing that
My dad makes me come here every day. Yeah. That's kind of thing. Yeah. But there wasn't hardly anybody who did that. But I also wanted to understand how they were training themselves, how they were getting advanced. And then the big question, why are you staying in a profession that quite literally is pushing women away? Why are we holding down and on to and staying and saying, no, I want this space? That research was really interesting, because what also came from it was I also asked questions like, intrinsically, do you feel successful at what you do? Yes or no? Did you ever have a male ally along the way who kind of helped with that trajectory or that push or that wind beneath your wings? Yes, I did. These were very common. So I realized going into, because I want to say something very transparently, it is a very big bite to take to say you're going to take on all of financial services and change it. That does not come from a light space. And yet I very cavalierly said, I'm going to do this. I know a lot of people. It was a really big, and you don't know, I mean, I didn't own a membership company before. I didn't do any of this stuff before. I just knew that I had a passion that got me up every single day, that I wanted to talk about more women and what they were doing. And never was it going to be at the cost because of the men, because my focus is on dolphins. Doesn't mean I want whales killed in the ocean. I just happen to be particularly interested in this. And so off we went. And I have to tell you, we were just a special interest group on Facebook. Like Beth was an OG. She was one of the original members of it, and said, I remember, and it was very bunch of old fashioned. Hey girl, I'm going to do this thing. I don't know what it is. You with me? Yeah. And honestly, the answers were things like, it's Sheryl. She just does stuff. Yeah. Whatever it is, I'm in. And I'm like, okay.
So when was this?
That would have been May of 2018. And
it was just, there's a void here. I'm going to create a Facebook page.
Yeah.
And that was the genesis of this.
Yeah. I hired
it was word of mouth.
I hired a graphic designer and said, I need a cool logo. Like, I literally don't know anything into this, and started a Facebook group. And my goal was, honestly, Scott, can I get 200 women to get in a Facebook group, a room, because we're all across the United States, and help me make this change, make it happen, because it's going to be terribly difficult alone, but we're so much bigger of a voice when we're together. 8 days. I had more than 200 members in 8 days. 8 days. And and Beth will tell you, I call every person, do I not, Beth, and say, yes, hey, come do this. To this very day, we do not let anybody in unless I talk to them.
To me, what screams is just how different. We all know men and women are different, but I'm going to say why most men are lame. They don't share. My point in that is like, you tell a woman about something, they get excited about it. They share that information. They're very, unguarding with sharing positive information. But a guy could go on, and we joke about this, a round of golf for 5 hours. What did you talk about? Nothing really. Nothing.
I wish Daryl were in here. He'd be like, that's so true. Cause he just came back from golf retreat. I'm like, what'd you guys do? Play golf.
Yeah. For us, it's kind of the
You're
point.
on 4 days.
I don't really want to talk about anything. A weakness and kind of lame is my description in that, as opposed to, hey, John, I just got introduced to this group. You really should check this out. And just an instant advocate.
Mm-hmm.
You had that. That's unique.
Yeah. I'll tell you, one of the things that I had to start getting really comfortable with was embracing the one thing that I'm good at. I will tell you, pre-starting this, I would be the person like, I'm not good at that, or it's all right. I am very good at shepherding people to my cause.
You're a connector.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm a sharer. I'm an idea sharer. We are not going to change anything if we keep all the secret sauce to ourselves. No. Absolutely never going to change anything. I think Beth and I were talking yesterday, and I'm going to use this analogy because it's going to be very easy for listeners and watchers to understand this. My son is 32, and I've got 9 grandkids. So this is not my first rodeo. I've been in financial services for 32 years. This is all I know. My son puts on Facebook, Uber needs to have an ambulance service. And everybody's like, ha, laughed. And I stopped him. I actually said, well, explain to me what you mean. And he goes, well, if I have a heart attack, please call the ambulance. I want like EMTs there. I broke an arm. I just want to get moved up to the, on the Uber list because I don't want to drive myself. I want to get myself to the urgent care or the hospital. And I want to do it in a safe way. And I thought, but guess what? Am I the person to solve that problem, Scott? Absolutely not. I went straight to Twitter and said, hey, Uber, Lyft, this is you. This is for you. This is a great idea. Sharing the idea and getting them out there. And that's all I was trying to do was I want to make a difference with the time that I have left because I'm over 50. I mean, that dash, I'm headed towards the other side of it. Let's be honest by the numbers. And if that's the case, then I want the time to count for something.
Right.
I want to make sure that all those months that I wore pumps and pantyhose in San Francisco are paying off right now because I swear I'm never going back to that. But, we laugh but it was true.
It's true.
Yeah. The guys are walking in sneakers and Dockers, and they're looking at me going, I don't think you have hose on. For real? I don't think he's ever shaved, but okay. So, that's one of the things there. We start looking at things and making changes because that was really, and I bring it up and I make it funny, but because it wasn't important. We were so focused on the unimportant stuff where the real rubber hit the road, where the real important stuff was. And I was grateful someone saw it in me, was that women are really, really good at personal currency. What you just talked about, both of you. If anybody wants to find out what's going on, send them out there. I can go out and meet with clients, come back in and say, oh, well, this is what's going on. Because I just knew the things that were driving them, not just the more superficial, but I started getting into the weeds of it. And I think women just naturally are very good at that.
Yeah.
So how many members do you have today?
3,157.
Wow. That's pretty exciting. All over the country, outside of the country?
Yeah, we have a few. So we love our Canadians. We love you. You're welcome. They're all so kind. They're so nice.
Right.
They're like, can I please?
We could use more of that.
We need a little more of that influence. And then we have some really unique little sectors. So there's a woman over in England who has organization a little similar to mine, not the same, but a little similar, that I refer any of our UK, any of the European people who contact me and say, I want to join this. And I go, hold on. I think you should go talk to Gemma. And I send them that way. But then there is a really big subset in Australia, believe it or not, that they have nothing and no reasonably close type of organization there. And I welcome all of the women from down under into the group because they talk and they have very similar, especially from an insurance standpoint, it's very, very similar, their setup and how they look at risk and how it's managed, et cetera. So, but for the most part, 93% of our organization is from the United States.
Okay. So what, thinking about females in finance as an organization, you made the comment of, we really wanted to focus on the important stuff and the things that really make a difference and matter. And what are some of those things?
So contrary to anyone listening or watching this, we are not sharing recipes.
No
nail art, no haircut tutorials, no great clothing suggestions, jewelry, perfume. I get asked, and I know I say that and people are like, no way. Oh yeah. Every day guys there's some jabs and things that they'll say, oh, you guys are sharing recipes. I'm like, nah, not happening. That's why the recipe book is sort of sitting there as sort of a fun thing. But in honesty, the questions that are coming up in the group are more things like, hey, in our CRM, I'm trying to do this and make this happen. Does anybody know how to make that happen? Yeah. Hey, I'm in Boston, but I have a client that just moved down to Florida. Somebody want to do some co-work with me because I can't get between them, but I don't want to lose them as a client. Or, hey, I am a financial planner. I'm looking for an insurance person. Can we marry up so we can do some work together? Yeah. So there's an ecosystem that came from this, that we naturally want to do business with our other females in finance members. And I recognize that right from the get-go. The 200 women that sort of fed the group at the beginning, they were already either kind of knowing each other or heard of you, or now they're very, very tied together and doing stuff and work together in running meetings together and all this other stuff. But the other thing that's really interesting is now they're bringing complicated questions to I have an estate planning structure that's got this, and I was thinking about putting this here and that there and taking this out. Does anybody else agree with this type of portfolio setup, or do you have suggestions? Well, have you considered it? And then there goes the dialogue. When I saw that starting to happen, I actually started reaching out and making the time to call the women who are posting that and said, why would you come here and post that? And they're like, why would I not? 3,000 minds are better than I'm one. I'm going to ask if anybody has any other structural questions around that stuff. They'll also, and I have to tell this for every person who identifies as a man out there, if you are rude in the social space, let me tell you, they'd let us know. So they will tell you this person is not a male ally, or this person did this. And for anybody else listening, believe it or not, if you knew how many times in the group women come and say, is anybody else getting hit on by this guy through LinkedIn? See, Beth knows because we've had this dialogue. And then we all know, like, this is the person who's asking us on dates, and then everybody goes and blocks them. And I mean, it's just I love looking at his face because he's like, he just can't even believe it.
Really, I have to share this because you're bringing it up, but yes. And some of the lengths that some of these gentlemen will go to, or these men will go to connect with you, they will actually email your work email and have attachments and say, I saw you on LinkedIn, and I'm normally only use this as a professional platform, but you're so beautiful, or I just want, I'm stepping outside of my bounds. And then they send attachments. And of course, I've never opened them, but it is relentless as to how often that actually happens.
And if you knew how many times the women dialogued about it, it shocks professionals when I go into and speak with men and I say to them, like, this is the stuff that we need to make sure you're aware we do not condone. They're always they're faced with Scots. Like, people do this. I'm like, oh, all day. And I mean, even to the point where, and I know, Beth, you were a part of the group when I first started, I had to actually post. There was one person in particular who, when I declined advances and I blocked him, started a second LinkedIn account and came back and kept pursuing to the point my husband had to get involved and say, would you please leave my wife alone? I mean, it's really, these are the types of things I have to tell you too, because women and our voices and our passions and our purposes are being heightened a little bit more now. I love nothing more than going to conferences and hearing professionals stand on a stage and say certain activity will not be condoned at this conference. And if you are in, if there's an infraction here, you'll never be invited back. Not, we won't do business with you. I mean, you're out. It has come to a point where finally the things that women know are going on are being brought to light. And with that, as hard as those dialogues are, and that's actually how I met Beth, because we had something like that happen to me that she had to intervene on. We now can actually have dialogue openly, and change can start to happen. And I think that's that part of the work we do, hard but amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So the name Females in Finance suggests females only. However, by this conversation, that we are contradicting that, or opening this up to males. And then you also mentioned the word male ally.
Yeah.
So expand upon that.
Exactly. So actually, when something says females and finance, it doesn't just necessarily say, because that is in the name of it, that somebody else is out. And I think that's one of the reasons why I kept the name the way I did, because it's anybody who's for women, and that's men too. And so we started what was called the MAN Initiative, which is Male Ally Network. The MAN Initiative, of going out and finding the great men out there who want to champion the Beths and the Sheryls, and the list goes on. And as well as, hey, I'm going to champion you back, because that creates a completely new landscape of professionals. We have all of financial services going on today, and that does not work. I can tell you it doesn't work, just because I can see how there's bullying and things that get shut down and all of this stuff. By creating a secondary ecosystem like I have, we can invite the really great, wonderful professionals in, do real business, still be caring and empathetic, and all the things I think that women traditionally are better known for, tend to be a little bit better at. But all the while, I'm 100% going to cheer Scott on too, because I know Scott's for me. So it's a very different way of looking at it, very abundance minded, almost to the point of woo woo, which freaks out some people, because they're like, nah, people aren't this nice to each other. Beth?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the ecosystem that Sheryl mentioned is one of the things that I think is so phenomenal about the organization, is that not only are our male allies like very integral to the group, they're out there posting and they're sharing and they're uplifting and they're connecting other people. And so the whole ecosystem has really grown to say, we're here to support each other. And it doesn't, if we're like-minded and we have, similar visions and we have similar wants, then everybody should be welcome to that. I mean, there are those few that tend to spoil it or are stuck in a different way, but it would be very selfish to say men aren't included. I mean, I look at what Sheryl said about mentorship. I had the greatest male mentors ever coming up in this industry. And I can't even imagine what my career would have been like, or would be like, without them. Like, I'm so thankful for the guidance and, the nurturing that they gave me to support me in this role. And so we're stronger together all the way around. It's not just about, oh, this is for women only. It really is for like-minded individuals who have the same driven, passion to basically help and serve others.
I think one of the other things too, Beth, that the men, at least in our organization, do well is, for example, they're starting to catch themselves showing up on Manels, and they go, wait a second. How come there's 5 speakers here and there's no women? They're starting to ask the questions now. And now all of a sudden people are like, whoa, because it sounds different when it comes from the male allies. It does. When women say it, it's like, oh, here, trust me, there are certain publications out there, I will not name here, that something happens. Everybody tags me. And they're like, uh-oh, we got to go down the Sheryl Hickerson route. Here she comes for us, because they do that, a lot of men. Now the male allies are kind of stepping back and saying, hold on, I'm good in this, but she's better. Why is she not here speaking? That's change.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So to expand upon that, we'll come back to females in finance and how do people get more engaged and involved and all of that. But if we can just talk now a few minutes about really just women in financial planning.
Mhm.
Beth, you mentioned that women hold the bulk of wealth in this country. And so with that, though, what is their financial or retirement readiness?
So their financial and retirement readiness is actually very low.
Especially post-pandemic.
Yes, post-pandemic, because, for example, I was just doing this research about how women were affected in the pandemic. And in the month of December, 100% of the jobs lost here were all women. And you look at the fact that, okay, are they mothers? Are they, was their job actually eliminated? How many of them were nurses? Or they had to decide, okay, what is the opportunity here? What is more important? And a lot of them had to shelve their careers for that. The thing about women when it comes to financial planning is we are incredible savers. Like, we love to get our hands on our money and hold it in and be like, this is what I have. However, the problem with that is that your money's not actively working for you. And there's a lack of, there is a lack of knowledge and understanding on what it takes to really, truly retire. And even though we're such phenomenal savers, we have to be putting our money to work for us to actually have the retirement that we're looking to have. And so percentage wise, the amount of women, there was just an article in Forbes about this, that roughly it's about 55 to 58% of women say that they feel somewhat comfortable with what their retirement plan is, but they don't feel that they're ready to retire. So half of the female population doesn't have a plan for retirement or thinks that they will never have that opportunity to retire. And so to me, there's such an opportunity to help explain, like, bridge that knowledge gap and say, this is what you can do to have a successful retirement. And here's the reasons why you need to be working with a financial advisor. And that's the one thing I will definitely point out is that statistically, roughly 72% of women say that they are way more comfortable working with a financial advisor. They would love to be able to work with a professional, and they will actually take their advice. Where when you look at men, when it comes to financial planning, sometimes they can be a little bit more like, oh no, I don't really trust what that person's saying, or I'm going to go my own. Where women are more apt to say, okay, I see your plan. We're going to take it, we're going to implement it, and I'm actually going to follow through. And that also correlates to the 401k space. Women are more apt to actually max out their 401ks while they're working because they're saving. They're looking at that as they're saving. The idea and the opportunity is for us to be able to help say, here's the other parts of retirement. Here are the risks that go into that. We understand that you're such an incredible saver, but let's actually make what you want to be a reality.
You know, it's funny. I'm sorry, Scott. Something you just said there, Beth, during the pandemic. And I think I posted about this one day. And that is, so we go in, so many women lost jobs. They did.
Yeah.
But 401k people were stepping up left and right, especially the women who help manage those 401ks. And I got to give a shout out to Sheryl Mason, because she is a 401k like guru. And she posted in there, she said, don't touch your 401k and don't touch your banks, not during the pandemic. Because what happened, to her point, Beth said they look at that as a savings vehicle. They also don't understand a lot of times that the savings vehicle that they're thinking of it as, where they put their money to keep it safe, was not meant for a year out, 2 year out. It's not like the savings down at the bank where you go in and you take a withdrawal so that you can pay your bills. This is something for much later. And that financial part of the educational part of explaining, we need so much more of that, starting so much younger, so that when they go to their first job and they put their money in their 401k and they understand it's a savings vehicle, but it's not for till much later, and that's where see how that little miss became a really big problem during quarantine. I mean, it was really, really big. So
yeah, the other thing you mentioned, it's just, I think it's part of the difference between the genetic code of a woman who's more of a nurturer, right? So naturally, it's that nurture mindset, this unwillingness to take unnecessary risk. But how do you deal with that? What's the process that you go through to help and educate? And women are much better students and learners, I would say, by and large, than a male would be. You've got ego, you've got a lot of things that are just.
So I got to tell him my elevator story, Beth. This is the only way I ever talk about risk with women. This is it. So when I'm meeting with people, and I do work in risk management as well, so this is a very common space. And when I talk to women are almost always thinking about everybody else except themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know. There's very few that are so, about themselves. And even the ones who appear, you think that they're superficial, they oftentimes even have somebody else that they're doing this for, right? Because they just think of other people. So I go to that mindset and I'll say to someone, do you have somebody that you love so much in the entire world? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, oh, great. Have you ever been to one of the hotels and you've walked up to the elevator and you can see like the clear box and watch them go up and down? And and my kids love that. They would push all the buttons and they stop at everyone and drive me nuts. Sorry for anybody who got in the elevator with my children when they were young. And so I said, but did you know elevators have different systems that they run on? For example, back in the day when they started elevators, they had one pulley, and yet sucker snapped, you went down. And that's why people used to go up to old brownstones in New York and look at that and go, I'll take the elevator or take the stairs, because they knew the elevator was probably on a one pulley system, right? Today, most of them are built somewhere between 4 to 6, even 8 pulleys. And I said, so if I went and walked the person you love the most in the world, and there's one elevator that's a clear box and has one pulley, and I have another one that's got 6 pulleys on it, which one are you going to put your most loved person in the entire world on? And they say, of course, the 6 pulley system, because they immediately feel like it's safer, right? Mm-hmm. And I said, that's right. And I said, and you know what every single one of those pulleys are? Life insurance, it's long-term care when you have an event, it catches you for the next thing. It's disability, catches you. It's your investment portfolio, catches you. I said, that's what financial service professionals do. Their job is to provide you with as many pulleys to keep your loved ones as super safe as possible, because the risk then becomes diminished. It goes down much more as more pulleys are added. And so that's where, some of these people who are sort of like the cowboys or whatever that come in and they want to sell that one pulley system and be out and done, and they make a bad rap for a lot of other people. Good financial service professionals who work in risk management, otherwise known as insurance advisors, insurance agents, income planner, whatever, they are looking at this at a much larger, broader pulley system. And that's how I talk to her about with women. So I don't know. Beth knows that's how I talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
It goes back to, so many advisors just anecdotally profess that we're comprehensive and holistic and we cover all aspects. But when you start to peel away the layers, you identify pretty quickly, well, maybe not so much.
Not so much. Yeah.
Maybe not so much. So,
and you can almost pull that together through any asset, or retirement mapping software. That it literally unfolds it within seconds when you use fintech, right? And you can see where the holes are, and you're like, and then I have, as somebody who works with a lot of advisors and they say I'm holistic and comprehensive, immediately I'm like, okay, let's see what that means. What is it? Because it means something different to everybody else. That's one of the reasons why, too, at least in my organizations, I wanted to be certain that we were covering the gamut of all the financial service professional sectors that are out there. Insurance and investments and banking and actuary and accounting and all of them. So they had a place to learn from each other, because Beth's going to learn from a banker. And trust me, we did during COVID. The bankers rocked. They were in here going, let me get you some PPP money. Let me tell you how to do a forbearance on a house. Let me make sure you don't get your car note, moved over so you don't lose your car. They were in there educating all of us, and they carried us through that for a good 3 to 4 months of just educating us, because there's a lot of stuff I didn't know. I was like, well, I didn't know that.
Yeah, great point. Yeah.
Mhm.
So
And to
go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, to the point of risk, you know, it's not just, for example, you've working with a couple and it's a husband and wife, and we talk about this, especially when it comes to long-term care planning. And the husband is saying, "Oh, that's not a reality for me. I'm never going to be that, like, I'm never going to have to worry about this." Where his wife is the one who's actually looking at the risk that's there and saying, "But what if?" And so that's one of the ways to pivot, is like, they understand that there are risks. It's just, how do we help them plan for that better? And with Cheryl's elevator analogy, it all comes back to that, where women are more apt, once they know what the risks are that they're navigating, once they understand them, they are more apt to do something to have a preventative plan in place.
Exactly. And go a little bit riskier in
Yeah.
in their investments, in the type of products that they choose to be the vehicle to carry some of that stuff. If they know that the outcome probably is going to work to their favor, generally, if they have all the information, they're going to go, all in. And and that's even in same-sex relationships too, because that's another one where when you have two women in a relationship, I have to tell you that they equally have concerns, because I can almost bet you right now, families are extremely dependent on both of them, because usually in a traditional setting, it's just me. I mean, I can tell you right now, my dad lives 43 miles from me. He never calls my stepbrother, who lives 2 miles from his house. Never. It's me. I get the call, I get in the car, and I do the drive. And that's because but that's exactly what's happening in the same-sex marriages, is that both of those women are being called upon. And they're often having to take care of people. Long-term care is a very stressful situation for women in America today. And if anybody doesn't believe that, Ai-jen Poo wrote in a beautiful book called The Age of Dignity. And it talks about the caregiving crisis that we have today and the pressure it's putting on women, specifically on women.
Yeah.
And she's like, please, she's a big proponent of go buy life or long-term care insurance. Please do it.
Yeah.
So,
Peace of mind. Yeah. It's a big deal. It's the single largest unfunded risk.
amen.
Yeah.
So
And
how
advisors are the ones who are the worst. They don't even have the cobbler's kids have no shoes. I'm going to say it because I'm real talk.
and I appreciate that. Only good talk is real talk. It's a constant effort of education in our existence. How does one get involved with females in finance? So twofold, obviously females, women, but then also the non-chauvinist, non-pervert males. How do they get involved in the organization? The right one.
Yeah, for all the good men out there, and anyone, any woman or anyone who identifies as a woman, they're very welcome in our, organization, our community. You can go to femalesandfinance.com. Really easy, big button, become a member, click it. We have a lot of resources there. We have so many.
What does membership look like?
Yeah, so we have 3 tiers. We have committed to a free membership since day one. Even it meant the first 2 years of it, I paid for everything, and I've held to it. So free membership, usually it's a basic membership, includes access to this amazing Facebook group that we have. Plus any discounts and things that we get, I pass on. I tell everybody I'm not Costco. You're not joining me to get a discount someplace else. I'm not AAA. I don't do any of that stuff. So if I get it, you get it. I give it away 100% free. If you want to do meetups, you want to start doing some more business with each other, kind of an ecosystem, it's $5 a month. $5 a month, very reasonable. And then if you want to get any of the educational resources, the training, the replays, the downloads, and things like that, it's $24 a month.
Okay. So the Pro Females in Finance, I'm looking at your website here.
Yeah.
Beautiful website, by the way.
Thank you. I made it with these 2 beautiful hands.
I love it. It's great. It's got a fresh look. It's very well laid out.
Thank you.
Femalesinfinance.com. So the Pro Females in Finance membership comes with additional media as well.
Yeah. So we also, we pay for any of the women, we pay for them to have a seat on a National Speakers Bureau. So I don't make any money on that. That goes 100% to them. It's $100 out of my pocket that I pay out of their membership to get them out there talking. to get their thought leadership out. If you're in the Community Plus, which is our mid-tier, the $5 a month, we allow them to purchase their seat at a discounted rate of $75. And that means I put $25 of my own money in. So I actually invest in women to go out and do this. So it's, yeah, I try to have I feel like I'm always finding out new cool things we get to add to it. So.
Well,
Now, looking forward, meetings, gatherings, in-person gatherings.
They were all virtual in 2020. So now we're in 2021 and most people are vaccinated. So they're all like itching to get back in person again. There's going to be some of our chapters, for like Texas, for example, right now that chapter is very large. And so they meet in person in Dallas. So that means Houston, San Antonio, Austin, et cetera, probably are not going to go to those in person. So we sort of try to make sure that they have other meetings to join. Plus, if you do the Community Plus, you can go to any meetup. So if you're just doing them virtually and you wanted to go to Beth's at Four Corners, and she's got Arizona and New Mexico, Colorado, and Utah. Then so that they're able to go to that one too. So they can kind of decide where they want to spend some time and do some networking. And the women really do help each other. Some of the most amazing stories out of the meetups, just to give you an example, one of them was in Atlanta. There was a woman who came on, and I always tell everybody you have to put their big ask out there. What do you need in 30, 60, 90 days to move your business? And if you don't articulate, if you don't speak it into existence, we can't make the universe cooperate to work toward what it is that you want to happen. Sure enough, this woman comes off of speaker and she said, I'm going to put a big ask in the group. And everybody goes, yeah, I've been trying to get into the Federal Trade Building for like at least a decade, and it's been very difficult. One of the women without hesitation said, I worked there 17 years. I can get you a meeting this week. Had she not just asked, and that's all it is putting that out there. But I also ask all of our members to celebrate their wins. What's your big win? Because the other thing that we also see happen oftentimes with women is that I'll be on a call with a woman and I'll say, well, tell me about some of the things that you've done that have been successful. And they literally will say things like this. Oh, I still have cancer, but that was last week. I'm on to world peace now. But, I'm like, hold on, let's unwrap that package again. What? And this is usually these diamonds that I was on the phone with a woman 2 weeks ago who I have known almost 15 years. And she said, I wrote 3 books. And I literally said, I put my hands up in the Zoom and I said, I've known you. I saw you have children that are going into high school. That's how long I've known you. How did I not know you wrote a book? And she said, oh, I just did it in my spare time.
Let alone 3.
In her spare time. So that's a woman for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't let those things go at Females in Finance. And everybody gets behind the person and starts really, giving them their kudos and their accolades. And they say to them, if you say it on, LinkedIn and such, we're going to go out and celebrate with you.
So get on and be at least the base membership, right?
It's free.
Yeah.
It's free. I always thought it's my second favorite F word. Behind finance. Behind finance. Behind finance. Gotta say that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both for having this discussion with us today.
Thank you.
I certainly learned
thank you.
And, we will do this again sometime soon in the future.
I hope.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Sheryl, Beth, cheers to you.
Same to you. Thank you.
Cheers, Beth.